Hi, and welcome to this FORNAV coffee break. My name is René Brummel. I'm a product specialist at FORNAV, and I will be your presenter today. As this coffee break is live, you can ask your questions via the GoToWebinar question window. We will answer them at the end of the coffee break. Today, we're going to explain how to make subtotals in your Business Central reports. We will make subtotals with the group totals function, one of the oldest and most useful functions in FORNAV. They allow you to quickly create subtotals or even combine multiple lines into a single line. For grouping to work in a FORNAV layout, you need to follow 3 specific steps. Your data must be sorted by the way you want to group it. For instance, if you want to group all lines of type item in your sales invoices, you must sort your line data item by the field type. You must specify which fields you want to use for grouping, and you must add a group header or footer or both. Let's go and have a look. To demonstrate creating subtotals, I'm going to use these steps. The prerequisites, what do I need to get going? In step 2, I will sort my data item. In step 3, I will create the group header. In step 4, I will create the group footer. Let's start with the first step. Today, I will be working on a Business Central on-premise server with the Business Central 2025 Wave 2 release. I've installed the FORNAV customizable report pack, and I've executed a step-by-step wizard from the assisted setup to get started. I've installed the FORNAV designer, which is part of the FORNAV toolbox. You can download the FORNAV toolbox from the FORNAV website. And of course, everything I do today will work exactly the same in a cloud environment. The first thing we need to do is determine how we want to sort our data item. Let's say we want to group by 2 fields, first the location and then the item number. This way we get a subtotal per item per location. To make sure our grouping works properly, we need to sort our data item by location first and by number next. So let's move over to Business Central. So what I did in preparation for this coffee break is I created a sales order. And this sales order has a bunch of lines. I'm selling some bicycles, some touring bicycles, and the old lamp. And I'm selling those from different location codes. And I'm selling them in different quantities. So the first thing I need to do for grouping to work is to sort this by location and number. So let's go and have a look at our standard FORNAV reports, where we have the order. And you can see I have created a coffee break prep, which I'm going to take a copy of, and I will work on this coffee break prep layout today. We'll design it, which opens it in the FORNAV designer. Now you will notice that this layout is slightly different from our standard sales order because that's because I have added the location code there already. And if I preview this, you will notice that I've made the location blue lines in blue and the red lines in red. I will show you later on how to do that. And that's pretty much all the changes that I've made to this report. I've added weights to it as well. So let's close this stuff up and let's change the sorting. To change the sorting in any FORNAV report, all you need to do is select the data item you want to change. Those data items all have a data item table view where there is a sorting, and the default sorts by document number and line number. And if I drill down into there, you can see that I can remove the document and line number, and I can add the location code, I can add the number. If I then preview my report, you will see that my report is now sorted by location code first and by number next, which is exactly where I need to be for this coffee break. Now that we have sorted the data item, we can add our group headers. So say we are grouping by 2 fields, we need to add 2 group headers and tell FORNAV by which fields we want them to group. So this is a slightly trickier stage because we need to do a couple of things. We just changed the sorting. Next thing we need to do is tell FORNAV by which fields we want to be able to group. To do that, on the line data item, there's a group total fields property, which I can drill into, where I can also add my location code and my number. And we don't automatically group by the sorting on our data item. That could have been a possibility, but we don't, because sometimes you want to add a slightly different sorting than your grouping, because you may want to also sort by another field which isn't necessarily included in your grouping. So I've added those two group total fields. Then I can add my group totals, my group headers. So insert section, group header, insert section, group header. And then the first group header is going to be the location, because that's our first grouping. Location, and the group total field, which is going to be the location code. This tells this specific group header which group it is going to display, which of course is the location. And the second group header, let's set that up, is going to be the number. And that's going to display the grouping for the number. And then I can just add some information to my sections, and I will use the field extension fields, which are great for demos because they show the caption and the data. So grab the location code, and I promised I would tell you how to do this dynamic coloring. Select the control, go to the onPrint control. The onPrint control has a node in the dataset called curControl, which has a back color or the forecolor. The forecolor is the text and the back color is the background. I'm going to set the back color to line dot location code dot to lowercase. And because the line location code is a color, it's red or blue or yellow or whatever, those are colors, those are codes that JavaScript understands. All I need to do is lowercase it, and that will allow JavaScript to use the location code as a dynamic coloring. So that's all I need to do. It's quite simple, really. The next one is, of course, the field extension for number. And the field extension for number, I'm going to make yellow, and then I can preview. And then you can see that I have my sorting by first by location. So sorting location code blue. And then I get my sorting by number, and then I get 1000, 1001, and then my lamp. And then for red, I have the same, but with slightly different items. One thing that often goes wrong here is if you do not specify this group total field number, especially if you have multiple group totals, then your grouping doesn't work. And if you specify, let's put this back. If you change the sorting, then the grouping doesn't work either. Finally, we can add the group footers without totals. We're going to use one group footer to combine all of the lines with the same item and location into a single line, and we'll use another footer to calculate the totals per location. So back to FORNAV. So this is pretty much the same thing as the group headers. Simply add the group footers. I always give my footers, my sections, a sensible name, because if you use them in a template, everything makes more sense when you give your sections a decent name instead of group footer 1 and group footer 2, because you have no idea what ends up being what. And of course, location comes last and number comes first because of the way I want the grouping to set up. Add the location code in here. Then for the number group footer, I'm simply going to copy the lines body, paste them in here. And just to make it stand out a bit, I will change the location code background color. And the lines body, I don't need that anymore because I want everything to be all of the items with the same number to display in the same line. So I'm just going to say show output as false. So I'm just going to hide the normal line. That's the first one. For the location group footer, I'm going to grab my location code field, which is there. And then I will simply use the fields from the line that I want to use. And I want to use the amount. I want to use the gross weight. And I want to use the quantity. So that's how you would add the fields. Now, of course, you might ask, how do you set up the totaling? How do you tell FORNAV it needs to calculate the totals for these fields? Well, FORNAV does that automatically. Whenever you add a decimal field to any type of footer, FORNAV will automatically add that decimal field to the total fields property. You will notice in the total fields property, you have amount, quantity, gross weight, and unit price. Unit price was already in there. So that done. Looks like I have everything I want. Of course, I want to change the colors of my controls. So I simply copy the onPrint for one of the existing controls. Select all three controls in one go to the onPrint, paste, and done. Let's preview. There we go. That's pretty close. There's a couple of things that stand out that work perfectly and a couple of things that do not. What works perfectly is that this line, location red, the item 1000 used to be 2 lines, and it is a single line with a quantity of 2 now. That works. My total quantity per location works. My total amount per location works. So that's perfect. There's a couple of things that stand out that might not work properly, because if we compare the first bicycle line, you see we have a quantity of 2, a gross weight of 10, and a unit price of 4,000. And the gross weight and the unit price is the price per unit and the weight per unit. So it is the weight is 10. That also means that my totaling doesn't work. And if we look at the second line, you can see that the gross weight is totaled and the unit price is also totaled. I don't want this because the unit price is still 4,000 a piece. Because if my unit price is 8,000, then my total amount doesn't work. So there's a couple of things that calculate automatically properly, and there's a couple of things that I do not want to calculate automatically. So let's go back to our designer. Then in our total fields, you notice that FORNAV automatically added all those decimals, which is great for the amount and quantity, but we do not want for the unit price and the weight. So we move them there and have a look in our report again. You can see that the unit price now works properly. The gross weight works properly. The only thing that doesn't calculate properly is the gross weight total, because it shows 2, which is quite simply the value of the last line that was read before the group footer is printed, which is 2. That's off. Unfortunately, there's no way to calculate this automatically. So if I want to calculate my total gross weight per location, I need to do this manually. And I need to do that by taking the weight per item, multiply that by quantity, and store that and add that for all of the same locations. Fortunately, I have JavaScript inside FORNAV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a variable that I'm going to use to calculate my location weights, which is going to be an array. Then in the line on after get record, so every time a line gets read from the database, I'm going to add some script to try and find if the location weight exists. It's going to find the location weight.weight and add line.grossWeight times line.quantity. If it doesn't exist, it is simply going to push a JSON object into my array with the code line location code and with the weight line gross weight times line dot quantity. And this is going to give me a little array with all of the locations and the total weight per location. And finally, I can grab I can get the values from my array. So instead of line.gross weight, I'm going to use location weights.find, where code is line location code, and I want the property weight. And if I preview this, you will find that we have 2 times 10 is 20 plus 15 plus 2 times 2 is 39, and 20, 30, and 2 is 52. Let's recap what we just did. We found that we could create subtotals in our Business Central reports. To create subtotals, we must follow some steps. We need to sort our data. We need to tell FORNAV by which fields we want to group the data, and we must create group headers and/or footers. If we want to calculate the totals for our groups, we need to specify for which fields we want to calculate the totals automatically. And finally, we found that some totals are more complex than just calculating the grand total. And for these values, we needed to define our totals manually with JavaScript. Thank you very much for listening to me so far. I can see we have no questions, so I'm going to wrap up this coffee break. If you want to know more about FORNAV, or if you want to download the FORNAV toolbox, please visit our website. If you want to install FORNAV in Business Central Cloud, please visit the Microsoft App Source. You can watch more videos about FORNAV on our YouTube channel, and if you have any questions about FORNAV, please email them to support@fornav.com. For the full list of upcoming and recorded coffee breaks, please visit fornav.com/coffeebreak. Thank you very much for joining me today, and goodbye.